Hi everyone. So this is Alok, managing partner at Tax Mantra, and I've got my friend Kineet. He is the managing partner at Tax Mantra Task in Bank in Singapore. And today we in this situation we will talk about how Singapore is placed in the current situation. What are the common things about setting up companies in Singapore? Areas wherein we should focus, and also in terms of COVID situation, what Singapore is offering to global entrepreneurs. We thought that this webinar is very critical for businesses who are looking to start in Singapore and who are already in Singapore. And since we do a lot of stuff in India Singapore corridor, we have a India Singapore business bridge also, wherein we have helped more than 200 businesses in last in few months, wherein we have helped them to structure their entity and set up in Singapore or India. So today I've got Kineet with me. Kineet is from Singapore. He is our managing partner in Singapore and the Tax Mantra Task team. Hi Kineet, how are you? How are things
Hi,
in
hello.
Singapore?
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. It's a raining day in Singapore. It's quite cold in the office now. So actually, a lot of our team, or should I say, a lot of our staff are working from home also. So it can be quite boring when staying at home. So I think it's a good opportunity that we can do a webinar now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I heard that you have more COVID cases in last couple of days. You are touching 9,000 now. So that is also a worry.
Actually, we are approaching, going to hit 10,000 maybe in the next 1 to 2 days, and we targeted to be probably flattened out only after the cases has been hit about 20,000. But however, the government is doing its best to swab as many as possible, especially this 8 or 9,000 people who are infected is 90% are all foreign workers who are from South Asia region. So they are actually put inside a dormitory. Hence, the chances of getting infected is very, very high. Unlike the local Singaporeans and PR citizens, PR holders, because they are the ones who have their own house to stay. So chances of getting infected is very, very low. And probably out of these 9,000 people being infected, I think we have about only less than 500-600 of people of the citizens and PR holders being infected. The rest of 8,000 people are actually all foreign workers.
Okay. So we are also going live on Facebook. We are live streaming on Facebook. And if you have
Okay.
any questions, you can in the chat box you can ping, or you can ping on Facebook also. So Kineet, over to you. So let us start this webinar, and you have the
Okay.
slides with you.
Yeah, great.
So yeah.
Okay, actually, today our topic is what does Singapore provide to global entrepreneurs, especially in this COVID-19 situation. In fact, actually, many people has actually been inquiring us whether is Singapore a good place at this point of time. Actually, in fact, during this period of time, we feel that Singapore is always the top destination, be it whichever situation, be it boom time or even a crisis time, because the government will always be there to lend a helping hand, which I'll be touching on later on also. So maybe let's not delay further. I will touch on my next slides on why Singapore first, and after that I will share with you what does our government actually provide to you during this COVID-19 period. So let's take a look at Singapore at a glance. Across Singapore, actually, based on this is our statistics of Singapore, our population is actually probably about 5.5 to 6 million, and our literacy rate is very, very high. And definitely, Singapore is a growing economy. Should I say it's a developed economy? But however, we have a very strong population, which people can actually contribute to the economy, even in times of crisis like today. So let's take a look. Over the last few years, actually, these statistics has been changing every year. There are actually many MNC companies in Singapore, and practically alone, Indian entities in Singapore alone from 6,000 or even actually hitting to 7,000 of these entities are in Singapore. And if going forward, especially with many factories are now planning to shift out of China to come to India for low-cost production, actually this number may even go higher. especially for these 6,000 or even 7,000 Indian entities in Singapore, they may grow to probably 10 or 12,000 soon.
So Kineet, what you're trying to explain at this point of time is that many companies who would shift from from China to India will have a sales office and front office in Singapore for the
Yes, correct.
global shipping, because Singapore is anyway the hub for in Asia for a shipping destination as such already.
Yeah, and moreover, actually, it is wise to set up in Singapore, which actually I'll touch on a bit of the taxation later.
Okay,
However,
okay,
because Singapore being a crossroad between the east and the west, so and our transshipment will be is much faster also in terms of efficiency and in terms of moving the goods across, and we have tax tariff. So actually, setting up in Singapore is always an advantage where you can take advantage of the tax tariff and all the free trade agreements. Hence, many entities, be it MNCs from US or MNCs from Europe, they would rather set up their regional headquarters in Singapore to save on all this tax tariff when they are doing the sales between the west to the east or the east to the west.
okay. No, you rightly pointed out that, and there are a lot of examples in the recent past wherein many of the global MNCs have shifted to Singapore. Dyson is one of the examples.
Yeah, definitely. Dyson is one of the top example, and actually there are many more also actually.
Okay, okay. So we will dive deep into the reasons why global MNCs and startups and tech startups and health startups, fintech, why most of the startups and emerging technology companies wants to have a base in Singapore. That is something, and we will deep into that. And so Kineet, we can move ahead on those factors
Yeah,
also.
sure.
Yeah,
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 no
yeah,
worries. Okay, this will be shown on my next few slides.
yeah.
Actually, if you look at it, why many MNCs and even why Asian MNCs or even Western MNCs has been setting up in Singapore. If you look at this map, within 3 to 4 hours, we actually can travel across to many Southeast Asia countries and even probably hitting into Australia, whereby you have access to 625 million population. And practically, within another 5 to 6 hours, you can hit almost across any part of Asia already and even into Australia. And you can get yourself access to more than 4 billion population. And imagine you are targeting a 4 billion population market, be it in terms of technology, internet market, or be it in terms of consumer goods. Actually, this will be a win-win situation whereby in Singapore, be it you are using a flight or a transshipment, which will take longer, a few more days, but you can get yourself access to almost 4 billion population and your market that will be there. So imagine you just have to target 0.1% of this 4.2 billion population. You're talking about 4 million of consumers coming to you. So you will be actually engaging with a huge market access.
That's huge number. That's a huge
Yes,
number. I mean,
definitely, it's way huge. So you're combining between actually India, China, and almost part of Europe also. So I think that is a very, very good opportunity. So
and also since Singapore in today's world is very stable politically, and they have a very good relation with all the countries. I still remember when US and North Korea had the discussion, and there was a
yes,
conference. Singapore hosted it. So today Singapore is actually into good relationship with all the countries, including China as we speak today. So because of that reason, many companies would want to have a base in Singapore and then go global. They might have manufacturing in India or manufacturing in Southeast Asia, but they will end up having a sales office or a marketing office in Singapore for business reason and also for political reason at times.
yes, you are right. Actually, at times, Singapore has easily more than 15 free trade agreements, and actually we are growing our free trade. Actually, the exact number should be easily like more than 20, about 26 free trade agreements with around the world. So companies who incorporated in Singapore actually can leverage on all these free trade agreement to save on the tax tariff and to save on many other trade barriers rate tips.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So
Yes.
Singapore, from a logistic situation, from a political reason, and also now we move towards the corporate tax and what Singapore offers in terms of benefits to
Yeah, actually, in my this slide, which has been fleshed out, practically we can see the quick business fast facts before we go into in greater depths. So actually, in fact, to start a company in Singapore is less than 1 hour. Especially, Alok, I think we should say our record. We started a joint venture, and practically is incorporated within 45 minutes of our time only.
Yeah, so I still remember in 2015, 16, we actually started the company in 45 minutes, and
Yes.
on a Sunday, I still
Yes,
remember.
it's on the weekend. So practically, unless the server is down for maintenance, if not, actually, when the server is up and running, we can get the incorporation done within 1 hour. But
Yeah,
however, definitely, the documents must be ready. So just only it's an online application, and we can get it done.
yeah. So what Kineet is trying to explain you that once we have the documents ready and once we have done with the KYC, once we are ready with everything, then the government doesn't take more than, if everything is fine, more than 45 minutes, 1 hour to set up the
Yes,
company.
correct.
But we have to be very careful because of a lot of rules and global rules and regulations which we have to adhere to from FATCA to other money laundering cases. Because of that, the KYC becomes very important. So KYC takes some time, but still, I think in couple of days, taking everything into consideration, we can set up a company in Singapore.
Yeah, definitely. Hence, actually, if you can look at besides a very efficient incorporation, our tax rates, or shall I say, our corporate tax, including other taxes, are very very low. Particularly at the corporate tax, there are no changes. It still remains at 17%. It's a flat slab of 17%, and there is always exemptions also, which I'll be touching on. And obviously, withholding tax in Singapore and even any part of the world, there's always withholding tax. Our withholding tax easily range between somewhere 15% to 22%. Uh, and obviously, we have a very low individual personal income tax rate, ranging from a 0% up to 22%, the highest. And the good news, where our goods and services tax in some other countries known as value added tax is at 7%. And the government has announced that they will remain 7% for this year and even next year, 2021. So
Yeah.
there may be changes later on in 2022 or 2023 where the GST will be raised to 9%, but at least enjoy this year and next year the 7% rate.
But bro, Kineet, I don't think now the government will. I think government will take some more time to raise it to 9% because of the
Yes,
COVID
correct.
situation.
Yeah.
So one thing which most of the I have got a query also, that is it flat 17% or the effective tax rate initially for startups and small businesses comes to much lower?
Okay. I will also touch a bit, but since you asked, I will give you a quick answer to it. Not to keep anyone guessing. Practically for the first 3 years on new startups which qualify for qualify for a full tax exemption. This is the way where many people has concern on, because they thought that they for the first 3 years they did not have to submit tax, they did not have to pay any taxes. But actually, this is a wrong concept. You still need to submit your taxes, and now there's a slight change to this full tax exemption basis. Practically, for the first 100,000 of taxable profit, you will be getting a 75% exemption. So, for instance, if you have $80,000 of taxable profit, your first 75% of the 80,000 will be tax free. However, the remaining 25% of the 80,000, for instance, which is about 20,000, you'll be taxed at 17%. So, in fact, actually, our corporate tax rate after all these tax exemptions for the first 3 years is as low as probably 5% only.
Wow, that's the news. So basically, uh, it ranges between 5% to 17% depending at what stage you are in,
Yes, correct.
and
So the
the
effective tax rate, even if let's say after the first 3 years, on your fourth year, the government still gives partial tax exemption. So it's up to the first 200,000. So that will be easily exemption of easily up to $100,000 of tax exemption, depending on your profitability of the company. So for instance, if let's say on a fourth year you are making about, let's say we're talking about $160,000 of taxable profit. So your exemptions can easily go up to 80,000, and you only pay your taxes on the remaining 80,000. So that is
okay.
something which actually entrepreneurs and investors should seriously consider Singapore due to its low tax rate, where I don't see any other countries giving such a great incentive on corporate tax exemptions.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. Uh, I completely agree with you on this. So basically, to summarize, the goods and service tax in Singapore is 7%. So what is the minimum quantum after which you have to register for GST?
Yes. Okay. Basically, for goods and services tax, in short, you call it GST. You can actually register voluntary, even if let's say your threshold falls below 1 million. So for the mandatory amount is if your annual sales given in any financial year, it should be 1 million Singapore dollar and above. Hence, when you're close to 1 million, it's better that you get it registered ASAP, so that at least you won't be in violation of the GST rules and regulation. Because once you exit 1 million and you fail to register, you have to be liable for the excess of the amount of the 1 million of the GST. And it can be very hefty also if you fail to register for GST and report and pay for your GST liability.
Okay,
Yeah, hello?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah,
And
actually,
so,
based on our past experience, we can share also. Actually, if any of these of our clients who have
hmm,
actually exceed 1 million, but uh, the bulk of their sales, should I say, easily more than 95% or even close to 100% of their sales are generated out of Singapore. Meaning that means the Singapore entity is used for only administrative region for billing and receiving money purpose. Hence, the bulk of their sales and services has been done outside Singapore. The company may be also able to apply for GST exemptions. And I believe that we have done it for more than easily more about 20 of our clients at the moment for GST
yes.
exemption.
So what you're saying that if you are into export, if you are exporting services or goods, then you don't need to require GST
Yes,
registration.
correct. But you still have to apply for some exemptions so that you could at least be in compliance with the GST Act.
Okay. So moving ahead, Kineet, uh,
Yep.
I have got one query.
Okay.
I don't know why the person doesn't want to be known. He says anonymous attendee. He's saying,
Okay.
is Singapore still a tax haven? I heard that the tax is zero for all income earned from outside of Singapore. So if you are a
Okay.
Singaporean resident, if you earn income from outside Singapore, what's the tax there?
Okay. Our tax is based on tax residency instead of
Hmm,
nationality or even
hmm,
citizenship. So, for instance, even for a foreigner, let's say if you are having a valid employment pass in Singapore, if you are a Singapore tax resident, any foreign source income, be it your dividend, be it your interest income derived from overseas, or even be it your other employment incomes, as long as you are Singapore tax residents, I could boldly dare to say quite a number, the bulk of your foreign source income, especially your dividend and interest income, will be likely be tax free. Hence, actually, this question, this anonymous viewer is actually he or she is indeed right that Singapore is partly a tax haven, but not really so of a 100% tax haven like BVIs or Cayman Islands. However, uh, we are at least considered legitimate because in this way, you do not have to really declare so much of your compliance, such as FATCA or CRS, if you are Singapore tax resident, because all your tax is 100% accounted for already.
Yeah, and also and I don't see moving forward you will have any tax havens left because of the government strategies and they are renegotiating all the agreements. And it's always good to get into a country which has got reasonable low tax but good global goodwill and good stable financial system, which Singapore is, rather than going to a country like Cayman or some other country which might be tax haven at this point of time, but you don't know what will happen.
Yes, you're right.
The Indian government will make one change in the law, and you will be completely screwed up.
Yeah,
So
I could boldly then say, yeah, we have a very stable government. We will not overnight change the currency situation. I understand that in India a few
uh,
years ago, the government just overnight just scrap off some of these
so
currency.
yeah, and also since Singapore has got tax treaties with all the countries, so there is a stability and there is a clarity in terms of how the transaction will be taxed. With most of these tax havens like Cayman Island and other tax havens, you don't have tax treaties, so unilaterally the other country can make the change and can put your income on taxes. So that's one thing. So I to my mind, you should always get into a country which is stable and which has got low tax regime and which has got tax agreements with other countries, so that you have clarity in terms of how you will be taxed. Kineet,
Yeah, you're
there is one question which is there. So there is a startup, tech startup in India,
okay.
and they are about to raise Series A, but
Okay,
now because of this COVID, their Series A is delayed. Their funding is delayed.
understand.
Now, uh, so they are saying, does it make sense to create a holding company in Singapore at this point of time? They already have a turnover of close to 1.5 USD.
1.5 million USD, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I could dare to say that be it whatever situation, a boom time or a crisis time, I think it's wise to set up in Singapore. Mainly, besides tax savings in Singapore, I could feel that especially if you have a technology company, you could actually move your intellectual properties, IP assets into Singapore. Reason being is because we have no capital gain in Singapore, especially yeah, if you're going to raise fund, Series A, Series B, or Series C, up to whatever series it is. Once you are big enough and you decide to exit from the business, you will be actually facing a very hefty capital gain tax in India if you continue your business IP assets in India. Unlike in Singapore, once you exit, there won't be any capital gain tax also.
Yeah, so there are two things which are very critical here. One is there is no dividend tax, and the second thing is there is no capital gain tax in
Yes,
Singapore.
correct.
And you are able to leverage and optimize your value of IP. So if you feel that in future you will be able to raise capital from global investors and foreign investors, it always makes sense to register and shift your HQ to Singapore at the initial stage wherein the value of IP is low.
Yep.
Once you have reached a stage or raised couple of rounds, it becomes difficult because you already have a value to IP and might be you might pay capital gain because of
Yes.
that.
Actually, one good example is I think the best example is Flipkart from India. Flipkart actually raised quite a few series of fundings, and later on they moved their whole entity into Singapore. But however, the Indian RBI has some issues with Flipkart. I think till date, has it been resolved already, Alok?
Flipkart. There was a issue with FDI in terms of in retail. So there was some restriction in terms of FDI which you bring in retail. So because of that thing, they actually registered their HQ in Singapore so that they can raise capital easily globally, and they continue to have the customer entity or the e-commerce entity in India. So what by doing that, they were able to easily raise funds globally and with their e-commerce entity in India. But uh, at this point of time, when they have exit, investors have exit, there are some capital gain because of the rule which is there in India. So that is something which we can discuss later.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Kini.
Okay. Yep. So practically now we are on our next slides. Why Indian entrepreneurs are choosing Singapore for global extension. Practically, as I have already started from the start of this webinar, whereby it's a very simplified process and minimum documents required. And technically speaking, in less than 1 hour, once our documents are ready, we can get it incorporated as long as we have cleared all the KYC due diligence. And as I have shown over the last 15 minutes, we have a very simplified tax structure. So it's not so complicated, unlike in India, where you can have multiple tax structures, which can be very confusing. And as you can see, all my other pointers practically is there's not much of legal work to be involved or not much of other license required unless you're in some specific industries.
Yeah, Kini. So we have already discussed most of these pointers.
Yes, correct.
So there are three, four main reasons why, especially an Indian entrepreneur would want to set up in Singapore. One can be real business reason because he wants to get into the APAC market and get into the ASEAN market.
Yes, correct.
So Singapore is a great place. But another thing is someone who is into shipping industry because Singapore is the hub for shipping industry. In fact, it's world's sixth largest shipping hub sometime back. I mean, I think you guys have done very well in that.
Thank you.
The 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 third reason is for the new tech startups and new tech businesses. If you set up in Singapore, it's easier for you to raise capital from HNIs and also from individual foreign investors, be it in any country. So for them, it's easier to remit money to Singapore because in India, you will need to comply with RBI and other compliances to for an individual HNI to invest in India. And the fourth is in terms of future exit and capital gain and dividend. So I think these are the 4 5 reasons why someone want to register. Fifth point, which is very specific for India, because India is a large market, 1.5 1.4 billion market. So you can still have your you can still explore the market. And the way Flipkart, for instance, they have done, they have that entity in India wherein the e-commerce venture worked very well, but they had that front office or the investment arm in Singapore. So that gives you double benefit. One, you can take benefit of Singapore in terms of capital gain and dividend in future, and you can also raise capital freely in Singapore, and you can still be able to have your entity in India and access the market in India. And I think that Singapore will play a very strong role and critical role, because there are, as I read, there are more than 1,000 companies who want to shift from China to India, their manufacturing arm. And
Yes, correct.
those are media reports. But the point is that because of what has happened with COVID, the the trust factor for China globally has come down, and many and companies don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. And India can be an alternative option for manufacturing companies, and Singapore can be a great country to set up the sales office and the front desk office for many of the benefits it offers. So I think
Yeah,
these are
definitely
yeah.
many of these factories, when they're moving out, Singapore will be part of their consideration, mainly because of all the tax reasons we have spoken about, and also mainly because of the efficient transshipment, which can actually ship from east to the west or west to the east. And however, also we are also talking about, if let's say Indian entrepreneurs are choosing Singapore, they can also leverage on getting themselves being supporting a global MNC company in Singapore by chance or by any of this goodwill work done across the years. For instance, you can be providing probably a IT maintenance services to a Singapore entity, and if the services you are doing is a great job, and the local Singapore company finds that you are a great help to them, you are a great asset to them, they will probably even engage you to support their across the remaining Asia Pacific regions officers IT maintenance work. Hence, actually, Indian entrepreneurs should seriously consider Singapore, because Singapore is a gateway to getting yourself access to the global world and also the Asia Pacific region.
Yes, Kenneth, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, okay. So on our next slide, yeah. So this is what we are trying to show you. Registration requirements of a company in Singapore. Actually, in Singapore, these are the basic requirement. We just need one individual shareholder or even one corporate shareholder. One shareholder is the minimum requirement, and we need also a minimum one local resident director. Hence, if let's say, for instance, you have no one to assist you to become a local resident directors, no worries. We will be able to provide you the local resident director services. And under the Companies Act, one company secretary is compulsory. And best of all, it's a very low startup capital entity in Singapore. You just need $1 Singapore dollar to incorporate an entity in Singapore. And definitely, local registered address is compulsory. Hence, we just have to show you these are the few roles and officers which required to incorporate a company in Singapore. And along the way, you don't have need any lawyer being involved, so you can save a lot of legal fees. Unlike in some other jurisdiction, you need a lawyer to probably have to verify your documents, to certify true copies, etc. Hence, in Singapore, it's a very simple incorporation process. Hello, over to you.
Yeah, Kenneth, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
so
yeah, you
uh,
continue. Hello. Yeah.
Yes, so it's very as you rightly said, it's very easy to set up a company in Singapore. It's hassle free. You can have just one shareholder. So many of the queries which we get in India is that can you actually register a company in Singapore with just one shareholder? So you can do that.
Yes, can.
You need one local director. So that's where
Yes, yeah, that's the thing. So even foreigners can own 100% of the entity in Singapore. No issues because unlike if you let's say you incorporate into it in other countries, for instance, our neighbor Malaysia, you probably have to give away up to 30 to 40% of your shareholding to a local Malaysian. They have this thing called Bumi Putra shares. So that means you give away almost like 30-40% of your hard work labor free to someone who is a local just to be able to access to their local markets. So this is totally, I don't think so. It's a very, it's not a fair deal. So in Singapore, our government is very generous. They allow foreigners to wholly 100% own a company in Singapore.
Yeah, so Kirit, one of the queries which I just got is that what is the minimum age for someone to become a director in Singapore?
Okay, the minimum age to become a director in Singapore is let's put it easily. You'll be 21 will be on a safe hand because 18 or 19 is still considered minor still in Singapore these days under the law. But 21 is a very safe hand, a safe guideline actually.
Okay, okay. So we can move ahead, Kirit. So this is
Okay,
with
sure.
regard to the
Yep.
setup. Yeah.
Okay, can. Yeah. So as we have already touched on quite a number of taxes in Singapore, let's do a comparative between let's say Singapore and India tax structure. As you can is as the pointers over here has been given. As you can see, there's a slab-wise tax exemption on
So
corporate tax.
I can take this up, Kirit. So
Yeah.
you
Okay.
can take rest for 10 seconds.
Okay. Thank you.
So Singapore have a slab-wise tax exemptions on corporates, as we were discussing, from 5% to 17%, depending on the year in which you are and the quantum. In India, there is no exemption as per the slab-wise. There is no concept of capital gain. So because there is no concept of capital gain, there is no concept of share premium and all those kind of things in Singapore. In India, there is a capital gain concept, and you pay taxes on the capital gain. In Singapore, the GST is flat 7%. In India, the GST has got four slabs still, with the highest slab being 28%. The corporate tax, as we said, the corporate tax ranges between 5 to 17% effective corporate tax, depending on the situation. In India, the effective corporate tax is 25%. So the government had reduced the corporate tax to 22%, but with educational cess and other cess, the effective rate comes to around 25%. So this is a very basic, brief comparison between India and Singapore in terms of taxation. But don't treat this as an advice. If there's specific, because there may be specific issues which come to you, and we can advise you on a specific basis. So Kenneth, we can
Yeah.
move ahead.
Okay.
Next slide.
Wow. It seems that you are expert in Singapore tax already. Yeah. Okay, now we are touching on something which is quite relevant by our government. And if you see this big figure, don't be frightened. It's $60 billion. So our
So
for
this
this
is
COVID,
around
Singapore
15 to
government,
18% of your GDP.
10 to 11% of our GDP, 12%. Our GDP is about half a trillion, 500 billion. So the government took out about 12% of the GDP, which is $60
So
billion
So,
for
so the,
our.
this is to everyone. So now we will discuss in terms of what Singapore has done to fight the combat situation, the COVID-19 situation in Singapore, and what they are doing, and can we, an Indian entrepreneur, can take benefit of any of these things. So Kineet will explain.
Yes, I could say yes, but obviously restricted to some access. That means if let's say if today an Indian entrepreneur incorporated an entity in Singapore, and let's say he or she employs maybe two or three or even you employ the bare minimum one local employee. Yes, this local employee will be getting some form of government payout to the employer, which is the entrepreneur. So, for instance, for wages alone, the government is actually supporting a wage bill to help to cushion this impact. So, for instance, in this month, in the month of April, the government is actually paying easily out 125% to 175% of your monthly wage bill in the month of for last year in the month of October to December. So there's quite a huge payout. For instance, for every $1,000, the government is paying you back 175%, up to 175% of the $1,000 which is payable to your local Singapore or PR holder employees.
Okay, that's huge.
Yeah. So and the government is also giving quite a number of supports also. So if, for instance, if you are today you have entity in Singapore with at least 30% Singapore shareholding, yep, the government is also able to grant you some business loan to help you cushion the working capital impact and to also probably allow you to expand. So in Singapore, we have the government is quite generous, especially in this budget package to fight this COVID-19 and emerge stronger.
Yeah, Kenneth. I'm just replying to some of the queries which we have got.
Okay.
Just a second. So there is one specific query which anyways we will take it up later.
Okay.
With regard to the bank account opening, which we can discuss later. So you can move ahead and complete your
okay, sure.
This part, and then.
So for this, practically is meant to help to support local businesses with local. I mean, should I say businesses with local employees? So actually, if Indian entrepreneurs coming to Singapore, and if you want someone to local person to assist in your business expansion, yeah, you can engage a Singapore citizen or Singapore PR holder, and practically in terms of crisis like this, the government will lend you a helping hand because they do not wish to see businesses going bust and end up people are losing jobs. So in order to keep the workforce intact, the government is actually pumping in money to help businesses to stay afloat and to survive, and obviously to emerge stronger after this crisis.
Yes.
Yep. So these are some of the key takeaways from our budget. We have actually quite a few names for the budget. So we use the second budget called the resilience budget for businesses. So practically, the government will be actually to help business to ease their cash flow. There's an automatic deferment of income tax payments for companies for 3 months. So practically, if let's say your income tax is due probably in the month of April, yeah, the government automatically extend 3 months down to July to pay your taxes. And obviously, like what I've said earlier, to help save jobs, the government actually co-pay the wages for up to 9 months in 3-period payout. And obviously, with the latest announcement, which is yesterday, the government actually have actually made money for loans easier to get access. So the central bank, which our MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is our central bank, will actually lend to the commercial banks at 0.1%, and hence we will open up the doors for cheaper loans, which probably instead of the usual probably 6-7%, the interest rate will come down to probably 2.5 to 3.5%. This will actually have a very huge impact on loan interest. And also, government is giving up to 100% commercial tax property rebates. So this is made into law it's made into compulsory law, whereby landlords have to actually give back the tax rebate savings in terms of rental rebates to all the tenants. So even if for entrepreneurs, be it from India, from US, or from any part of the world, they set up an office in Singapore, they rent office from Singapore, they will also get to enjoy all these tax savings during this crisis period.
Okay, Kenny. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from your side, Alok?
I'm just answering whatever I can. I have got
Okay.
few questions from my attendees.
Okay.
So I'm just answering
Okay.
few of the questions. Mahavir is asking that they are into unique home automation product. They have not still registered their companies in India. So should we register the company first in Singapore and then in India? So I have replied to him that this depends on various factors. But Mahavir, what I can tell you is that it depends what role your Indian entity will do. So if your back office, your development, your client service is still in India, then you should have an entity in India. Now, what structure you should have depends on whether you want to raise capital later, whether the investors would want to have a subsidiary mother entity relationship. Those factors we need to discuss. So we can take it offline and discuss it.
Okay, so I'll move on to next. Yeah. So as we have been touching base, and I believe there are a lot of technology companies in India. So these are some, and Singapore practically is home to more than, or actually is more than 80s, probably even 100 of tech giants from the world. As you can see from here, the hardware is like Dyson. Dyson actually moved their HQ from London to Singapore. So we have Dyson as a global HQ in Singapore. And there are many actually other IT companies which have been set up here, like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and we even have a building in Singapore where Google have their own building, and even Microsoft have their own building in Singapore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And these are some of the notable startups that exist from Singapore. Over, like you can see, like Redmart, Grab. Actually, Grab in India, I think it's also popular. Which the more popular in India is Uber, and Uber in Southeast Asia has been acquired by Grab in the last 2 years ago. Hence, there is no more Uber in Singapore, but there's Grab. So Grab is the biggest player in Southeast Asia in terms of transport mode and even for food delivery also.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And these are some of these well-known Indian startups who have gone global through Singapore. I think Practo, Imobi, all this you have noticed. Yeah, yeah, even Flipkart also.
Just a second. I'm just
Yeah.
messaging a few of the. Yeah, yeah, Kineet. So, thanks. That answers a lot of queries, I hope. So now let us explain what Tax Mantra Global does in Singapore and India, and how we, along with Kineet and our team in Singapore, what we do exactly. So,
Yes.
so Tax Mantra Global and Tax Mantra Task, we all are together in this, and we are a global tax and legal firm in India, Singapore, and US. In India and Singapore, we do so we help Indian entrepreneurs if they want to explore the Singapore market in terms of setting up, in terms of other activities. So we help them to set up a company in Singapore. We also help them to do a structure with the Indian entity, because most of the companies would have a back office in India, because the development and those activities will still happen in India. So and it's not only a tax firm or an accounts firm. It's a combination of tax, legal, and accounts. And we also help in visa uh, assistance in Singapore. We have been successful in helping in getting visas in employment passes to many of our clients' employees when they are hiring for first few set of employees from India. So so at Tax Mantra we are a full-fledged service firm. So anything you require from a tax, legal, and accounts and visa help in Singapore, we can help you. At this point of time, what we are doing under COVID is that we are providing extensive advice on sustainability in India and Singapore. What we are also doing is that we normally we don't do it, but we are doing a installment and part payment for our setup in Singapore. So this is something which we are doing. Another thing which is very important, because yes, to set up a company you don't require to travel to Singapore, but to open a bank account you require to travel to Singapore if you are one of the signatories director and you want to be part of signatories in the bank account. So what we
Yeah, but
so what
Alo, just to interrupt, I think during this COVID period, traveling may be very restricted. So I actually spoken to quite a few banks in Singapore, be it DBS, our local three banks, DBS or OCBC. These are our two main banks which are using. They allow online interview, and the documents probably have to you can sign off and courier back to Singapore the original copies. So clients may at times during this travel restriction period, they can do a online meeting with the bankers and get them interviewed. And after that, just probably sign off all the documents and courier back to Singapore. And even
okay.
Citibank also, they do allow such arrangement if you have a Citibank account in India.
Yeah, and if that also doesn't work, because many times that might get stuck because of KYC and other issues, So in some of
Yes.
the clients, we are also playing the fiduciary role wherein we are helping you to maintain the Singapore accounts up to a point wherein based on your uh, mutual agreements, we are doing that also. So if you want to set up in Singapore, still in the COVID situation, if you're not able to travel to Singapore to open the bank account, we can probably be able to help you either by setting up an online interview or by helping you to maintain your Singapore account for a period of time till the COVID situation eases out. So this is
Yes, correct.
this is what we wanted to cover today. And if you have any queries, you can send your a query to my email ID, or you can ping here, or you can ping on WhatsApp on WhatsApp or on Facebook, and we will take it up quickly. We are here to help you if you have anything in Singapore, not only with the new entity, but if you already have an entity in Singapore and if you want our help, we can also do that. One thing which is good, which we need to note, is that since we have a base in Singapore and India both, we also can help you in structuring the perfect structure from a RBI, FEMA, and transfer pricing provisions. Because many times, it's very important to bring this right now. Many times you just go online and try to contact entity in, online firm in Singapore and register the company, but there are a lot of requirement which needs to be complied from an India perspective under RBI, FEMA. So you have to be very clear in terms of structure. So that also we provide. That's it. This is it for today. And thanks, Kineet, for joining in.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah.
I know you have already skipped your lunch for this webinar, but thanks for that.
Yes.
Thanks for that. And Kineet, uh, we hope that we all come out of this quickly,
Yes,
and
correct.
I request everyone to take full care of yourself, your family, community, and stay safe. And we will come out of it quickly. Thanks everyone for joining in.
Thanks, everyone.
We will again come back with more on other topics or webinar. If you have any queries, you can anytime ping and get answered. Thanks
Yes.
everyone.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye bye.